lovely to be here this afternoon with Joe. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's really nice to see you again. I'm Graham Auld from the School of Public Policy and Administration, and I'm really happy to be here with Joe. We just recently celebrated 80 years of public administration instruction at Carleton University, and it's a unique opportunity to be with Joe, given Joe was a part of that history, having graduated in 1956 as one of the first students to graduate with a Master's of Public Administration from Carleton University. Joe, can you just share a little bit about your route to Carleton? What brought you to public administration?
I went to high school in Winnipeg, and then I went into what was then the United College, now Winnipeg University, and got my Bachelor of History degree there, and did 1 year postgraduate work at the University of Winnipeg, and won a fellowship to come to Ottawa. A lot of money in those days. It was $750. So I came to Ottawa and got myself a room in a house at $15 a month and showed up at Carleton. But suddenly I realized that what an advantage it was to have a School of Public Administration in the capital, because although Dr. McClellan would have to have seminars in his house, which he often did, you could invite deputy ministers, you could invite ministers, you could get specialists in all the fields of public administration. So we had access not only to really good professors, but to people that could come in and teach us. So that, quite frankly, when I graduated from Carleton, I felt equipped to go almost in any job that involved management, particularly public service management. And I applied for a job. They wanted me to go into personnel, but I grew up in Winnipeg, surrounded by Ukrainians, Poles, Jews, Icelanders. I wanted to get into immigration, which I did. And I made that made my career, basically. I did well and eventually ended up spending 3 years in London, England, coming back here to be sent to Winnipeg to have a district from the Lakehead to the BC border, which is a big chunk of territory, and eventually the head of the new Foreign Service, Immigration Foreign Service, headed by Tom Kent, the previous editor of the Winnipeg Free Press. And he and Marchand were new in the government, and Kent wanted to get rid of the racist immigration policy that we had had since the end of the war. So he formed a task force to design a new system that would enable us to open up immigration to the world, but at the same time would keep control. And I was lucky to be a member of that committee. And we introduced the point system. And it enabled us to take people from Hong Kong, from Jamaica, from around the world, and at the same time meet the needs of the Canadian labor force. And if there were too many people coming, we were able to turn it down. So that was one of the things that I really feel very proud of. From there, I got to be the head of the Immigration Service. We switched over to Foreign Affairs in 1980, and I became Assistant Under Secretary of State for Social Affairs. And then the next year, I was posted as Canadian High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But I was called back to Ottawa to take over the whole of immigration, which I wasn't happy about, but I did. And in those 5 years, from 1985 to 90, they were great years because we had a really worldwide immigration system that was modeled by the Australians and others. So it was quite an achievement. a tough job because every morning in the Globe and Mail, if there was a headline, you had to have the minister ready to answer. My first minister was, again, somewhat historic. It was Ellen Fairclough. She became the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, and I became her assistant. And she was a great woman. The problem is she lived in Hamilton, and while she was in Ottawa, she lived in the Chateau. So when work closed down, she started work, and you knew who had to be there with her. And we would work there till quite late. By the time I had 2 children, I realized I can't stay with Ellen, and asked if I could leave, and she said, no, you can't go unless you win a competition. So I applied for all sorts of jobs and won one of them. But she was a great woman and a great minister. I'm very proud of her. Yeah. Later on, I was moved to London, England. I spent 3 years there, really good years. The Canadian dollar was high. The British were going through bad days with coal strikes and 3-day works and so on, but Canadian diplomats lived very well. So, but then I got yanked back to take over the Immigration Foreign Service, and that's where Kent came in, and we designed that system. Yeah, it was a great challenge. After I had spent 5 years in immigration, and was that time in external, they sent me to ambassador to the Balkans, to Yugoslavia. I asked to go there because I knew a lot about the Balkans and had read a great deal. I knew there was going to be trouble.
Well, I think it's an appropriate segue to asking you a question. Turning to the present, we have a lot of students that are in the position you were back in the 1950s. They're just about to start a graduate program.
Yeah.
Currently, we have 150 students joining 6 graduate programs across a range of different topics. And I'm wondering, as you reflect back and you think on your career and you think about what you've learned and the essential skills that you gained from your education, what are some of the things that you would tell incoming students? How should they best use their time in a graduate program that they're just about to start?
I think they should always believe in themselves and have confidence in themselves, and that will work. Quite apart from knowing how to manage finances and resources and people, the important thing is to be confident of yourself and know what you can do and be willing to take risks. And not always follow the book. Sometimes the book is wrong. Use your good judgment. The major thing too is relations with people. You have to get along with people, and not always easy, but some people that seem pretty nasty are also very talented. So you've got to make sure you can balance that, and use the people who are working under you, get to know them, and realize that each one's an individual, and they all have a contribution. And what your job is to bring that out, not to rule them and tell them what to do, but to bring it along. That's roughly what I would say. Have confidence in yourself, and my first class in university was in chemistry, and I got 47 on the first test. That taught me I should get out of chemistry, which I did.
So trust your judgment. Trust your judgment.
Yeah.
That's a good lesson to remember for students. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, Joe, was we've had the honor of being able to award other distinguished alumni from the school with an award named after yourself, the Joe Bissett Distinguished Alumni Award. And we've had the pleasure of giving that out to leaders in a number of different public-facing roles, from industry associations to ambassadors to high-level officials in the government of Canada. And I'm just would love to hear you reflect on the importance of that, knowing that your name is attached to such an important part of the school going forward?
Well, quite frankly, I'm very proud of it. Some of the people that I met winning the prize, I admired them greatly. One of the most interesting one was the finance minister in China, who initially they would not allow to come and take the award, but Carleton made strong representations to the Chinese ambassador here, and they allowed him to come. And I sat next to him. He had someone along with him who was watching every word he said, but he passed me a little note in Chinese. I said, what does it mean? And he said, well, in China, we don't say, how do you do, or good to meet you. We say, have you eaten today? That was his message to me. I'm not quite sure what he was trying to say, but I think I know now. No, some of the people were astounded, and I look forward always to coming to the presentation, and I think there's one coming up in September, and I have received a formal invitation, and I will certainly be there. But as my wife said, and I think I've said this several times, we don't buy green bananas at our age. So you never know.
Yeah.
But I think I can make it till September.
Yeah.
2nd.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have a chance to have a conversation with you, Joe. And from the entire school, I really am grateful for all that you've done for us as faculty members and for our students. And it's wonderful to think that the career that you've had will be an inspiration for future students for years to come. So on behalf of the school, thank you again.
Well, thank you very much. But as I've said before, when I left Carleton with my master's degree, I was ready to tackle anything, whether it be private business or the bureaucracy. Yeah. And I profited a great deal from it. I learned a great deal from it. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.